There's one water project that stands among the most ambitious ever built. Constructed more than a century ago, it crossed deserts and mountains without a single massive pump. It turned a small, dusty town into a booming metropolis, but at the cost of destroying an entire fertile valley. This is the story of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, a marvel of engineering and a reminder of the price of human ambition. How did it work? And why did this project lead to unemployment, sabotage, and ecological disaster? Let's find out. The beginning. At the dawn of the 20th century, Los Angeles was still a small city of a few tens of thousands of people, but industry, mass migration, and the dry climate of Southern California caused water demand to skyrocket. Local sources like the Los Angeles River simply couldn't keep up. Led by William Mulholland, chief engineer of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, city officials began searching for new water sources. Their eyes turned toward Owens Valley, a fertile area east of the Sierra Nevada mountains, rich in rivers and snowmelt. For generations, the valley had supported farmers and the Paiute people, who built intricate irrigation systems to live off the land. In 1905, the city began secretly buying land and water rights in Owens Valley, often using questionable and deceptive methods. Through secret negotiations led by Fred Eaton, a former mayor of Los Angeles, the rights to the valley's water were quietly transferred to the city. Many local farmers suddenly found themselves without irrigation water, and entire communities felt betrayed and pushed aside. They had believed the water would stay in the valley, not be diverted hundreds of kilometers away. These tensions would later ignite what became known as the California Water Wars, a series of protests, legal battles, and even acts of sabotage during the 1920s. Constructing the aqueduct. Construction of the Los Angeles Aqueduct began in 1908. Thousands of workers labored across deserts and mountains, digging canals, building massive steel siphons, and carving tunnels through solid rock. After 5 years of grueling work, the aqueduct was completed and officially opened on November 5, 1913, marked by Mulholland's famous words, "There it is, take it." From that day, the waters of Owens Valley began flowing into Los Angeles, fueling its city's transformation into a modern metropolis. The aqueduct stretched 233 miles, or about 375 kilometers, from Owens Valley to Los Angeles, and it did all this without any large pumps. The entire system relied purely on gravity. Water was collected at an elevation of about 1,230 meters above sea level in Owens Valley and flowed downhill to San Fernando Valley at about 330 meters, dropping nearly 900 meters along the way. That elevation difference kept the water moving continuously through a combination of open canals, steel siphons, and long tunnels. The open canals carried water across flat plains, while steel siphons were used to cross deep valleys. As water flowed down one side of a valley, pressure pushed it back up the other, appearing to defy gravity, though it never rose higher than its original level. In total, about 53 miles, or 85 kilometers, of the aqueduct were underground tunnels, cutting through the Sierra Nevada, the Mojave Desert, and the San Gabriel Mountains. One of the largest was the Jawbone Canyon Tunnel, nearly 5 kilometers long. Along the route, Mulholland built key reservoirs like Highway, Fairmont, and San Fernando to store water, stabilize pressure, and regulate flow into the city. This system became the backbone of Los Angeles's water supply, and remarkably, it still operates on the same gravity-fed principle more than a century later. A city transformed. When the aqueduct opened, Los Angeles, once prone to drought, suddenly had a steady water supply. the city's population exploded from 320,000 in 1910 to over 1 million just 20 years later. At its peak, the aqueduct delivered 485 million gallons of water per day, enough to sustain the growing region. That water not only supported homes and sanitation, but also enabled the rapid growth of agriculture and industry. The once dry San Fernando Valley became fertile farmland, producing fruit, vegetables, and livestock. Soon, the region attracted major investments in transportation, real estate, and manufacturing, and even the film industry, which would make Los Angeles world famous. The aqueduct also generated hydroelectric power using stations at Highway, Cottonwood, and San Francisquito. As water dropped through steep sections, turbines converted its potential energy into electricity, powering pumps, lighting, and control systems. By the 1970s, a second Los Angeles aqueduct was built to increase capacity and meet rising demand. Today, the system remains operational, upgraded with digital sensors, automated controls, and energy-efficient monitoring. It stands as one of America's earliest examples of a multifunctional infrastructure, supplying both clean water and renewable power. Conflict and consequences. But the success of the aqueduct came with heavy costs. Owens Valley's fertile farms dried up, local economies collapsed, and many families were forced to leave. For the Paiute people, the loss was even greater. Their ancestral irrigation systems, culture, and livelihoods vanished. Anger grew. In 1924, Owens Valley residents sabotaged sections of the aqueduct in protest. This conflict, the California Water Wars, exposed how political and economic power could dominate natural resources. The state eventually adopted the Area of Origin law, recognizing that regions where water originates must retain priority rights to part of it, a principle that still influences water policy today. Environmental fallout. As Los Angeles prospered, Owens Valley suffered. With most of its water diverted south, Owens Lake, once covering 280 square kilometers, completely dried up by 1926. The exposed lakebed turned into a vast dust storm generator, releasing fine particulate matter known as PM10, which can cause serious respiratory illness. According to the National Academies of Sciences, Owens Lake became one of the worst sources of dust pollution in the entire United States. Winds carried millions of tons of dust each year, spreading across dozens of miles. Wildlife habitats vanished, migratory birds disappeared, and local ecosystems collapsed. Owens Valley became a symbol of ecological devastation caused by human engineering. The St. Francis Dam tragedy. William Mulholland's career reached its peak with another ambitious project, the St. Francis Dam, built in 1926 to store aqueduct water north of Los Angeles. But just 2 years later, on March 12, 1928, disaster struck. The dam suddenly collapsed, releasing 47 billion liters of water into the Santa Clara Valley. Within minutes, entire towns were wiped out. An estimated 400 to 450 people died, one of the deadliest civil engineering disasters in U.S. history. Investigations found the dam had been built on unstable rock, and warning leaks had been ignored. The tragedy changed American engineering forever, leading to new safety laws, mandatory inspections, and state dam safety agencies. Devastated, Mulholland resigned and lived the rest of his life in seclusion. The St. Francis Dam disaster became a lasting lesson in technical responsibility and moral accountability. Restoration and reckoning. Since the 1990s, agencies like the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power and the Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District have worked to repair the environmental damage, especially around Owens Lake. Under state orders, LADWP was required to reduce dust emissions using a combination of methods: shallow flooding, spreading a thin layer of water to keep the surface damp; managed vegetation, planting drought-resistant plants to trap dust; gravel blankets, covering the lake bed with stones to prevent erosion. These efforts became one of the most expensive environmental restoration projects in the world, costing more than $2 billion. According to the national academies, these measures have reduced dust emissions by more than 99% in restored areas. Yet, maintaining them still requires large amounts of water, a bitter irony in drought-prone California. Today, Owens Lake is no longer America's biggest dust source, but challenges remain. Climate change has reduced Sierra Nevada snowpack, the aqueduct's main water source, and rising temperatures accelerate evaporation,